So today we're going to learn about photography, basic photography, right? How to use this camera. As simple as it is, small, you might think, oh my goodness, because I use big cameras, I don't know how to use this camera, but it's an easy camera to use. It's very easy, because the most basic thing, you just need to understand the basic principles and what elements to use when you're taking pictures, ethical issues, which are very important, because as Bonisha said, photo voice, what did you say photo voice is about?
Telling our stories through pictures.
Going into communities, right? Looking at social issues. So that means you'll be dealing with people, right? You'll be dealing with people, you'll be dealing with structures, you'll be dealing with a number of things. So if you're dealing with people, there's certain ethics that one has to follow. For example, if you're taking pictures of kids, you can't just take pictures of kids. You need to get what we call consent. You need to be given permission by the parents or the guardian of that child, right? So kids are from what age? 0 to 18, right? So you need to find, especially small kids, you have to get permission. You can't just, you can't just take pictures. So this presentation is divided into 4 sessions. One, it's to teach you about the basics of what a camera is. We're talking about the DSLR, which is now a digital camera, which is also this one, also a digital camera. So there's different kinds of cameras. Do you remember the old cameras where people used to take pictures with black and white? I just forgot, I didn't bring one. The ones we call analog. They're like this one. So they look like this camera, You see, it looks like not like camera I said in the past. But now we use digital cameras. Also, this is, as much as it takes pictures as a what do you call this? As a in fact, I'm gonna take pictures with this camera with you guys. And when we come back, I'll show you pictures that I would have taken in black and white, like in analog. And then we have this one, which is a full frame, and then this one, which is the basic camera. So I'm turning on my camera. Turn on your cameras. Date. Okay, I'm not going to set the date. I'm going to say next. Did you already set dates?
No.
I'm going to say skip. Okay. So your cameras are on, right? So you need to understand your camera, and that's where we're starting. We're trying to understand the camera. Where is the lens of this camera? Show of hand. Just pick up your hand in terms of order. If you know where the lens is, just tell me where the lens is by just picking up your hand. Where is the lens of this camera? This is the body, right? We call this the body, right? The body of the camera. This is the lens. This is the eye. This is the lens, right? The lens. So because this one it's a fixed lens, you can't take it out like with the other cameras. These cameras, I can take out the lens. I can take it out, take out the lens. I can take out the lens, and then there's the camera. You see the inside of the camera, which is the mirror. So I can put it back. But in the case of this one, I can't take it out. It's a fixed lens, right? So this is the lens, which is the eye, or it has a pupil where you can be able, it works like your eye. You can see with your eye, and also there's different components in the eye for you to be able to see. So even for the camera, for it to see you or see the sconce at the back, it must have the lens, which is the eye, right? How do you hold the camera when you're taking pictures? Okay. This thing is not for decoration. This is to help you not to drop the camera. Put it around like this, right? Put it around your finger, like this. Yeah, there, okay? And then it helps you, whatever happens, whether you're able to not to drop the camera, right? And then you, in this case, you look at my hand, see? You need to look cool, guys. When you have the camera, you must look cool, very cool, so that it don't look like you're lost, look cool. This is a tool. This is a gun. This thing is so powerful, you have no idea. It is so powerful. So it's important that how you handle it. You must handle it with care, with elegance and class. Right? So that whoever you are photographing can see that you know your story, you know what you're doing. You're not lost. And it has, you have to display your confidence through this thing. So it's important how you handle it, because we don't want you holding a camera like this. No, please. This is not a selfie. Right? You don't hold a camera like this, that you have pictures that are askew. No. You have to hold it like this. See this finger? Hold it like, exactly. That's correct. You see? Yeah. You see? Must be like this. And then, no. Where's your name tag? So fundi kamala needs babal. You back up his kafin sakota can see your name. Babala, you hold it like this. Straight. Your pictures must always be straight. Straight is important. Babalo. So we have something that we call exposure. We have something that we call shutter and aperture. We have something that we call ISO and so forth. So exposure. What is exposure? What is exposure? Don't read there. Exposure. What do you think exposure is? Just, there's no right or wrong answer. What do you think exposure is? I'm not talking about exposure, being exposed to different cuisines or different countries. I'm just talking about exposure in terms of the camera. Okay. There, exposure is the amount of light per unit area, right? What does that mean? What it simply means is that exposure is the amount of light that comes into this camera to allow a frame. So when you're talking about a frame, a picture, an image is a frame, right? Your language will also change. You are not a normal, a picture, a normal picture that you take, you call it a frame. If one picture is a frame, it's one frame. If there's two pictures, it's two frames. Like this picture, that picture is correctly exposed. Slightly underexposed, but it's correctly exposed because it's clear and you can see, right? I mean, you see when a picture is overexposed, you find that it's like, it's too bright. You can see that, there's something wrong with it. It's too bright, then it's overexposed. And this is how exposure works, right? There's the light, right? There's the lens, right? In this case, the lens is here. So there's the lens, right? And then we're going to also learn about the aperture, and then we're going to learn about the shutter, and then we're going to learn about the mirror. So the mirror, if you saw when I opened this camera, you see there's a mirror literally. Can you see? So this is a mirror. So this is where the magic is done. In here. That's where the picture is done, in the mirror. So when we're talking about exposure, it's the amount of light that comes into, it has to pass the lens, the aperture, the shutter is open, and then to get to the mirror, and then the picture is done, right? So exposure basically is to make sure that Boniswa is clear. You can see her clearly, and it's a good picture, right? So we have underexposed, which is now the picture is too dark, and then we have overexposed, which means the picture is too bright. And then we have proper exposure, when the picture is properly exposed. And then we're talking about, let's talk about the aperture, right? I will explain aperture in this way. So this is a diagram of the aperture. So aperture, for that picture to be properly exposed, you need to get the aperture correct. So we call it aperture priority, or we call it f-stop, right? In this case, so with camera, there's a mathematician here, right? And it 9 is bigger than 1, right? Or 5 is bigger than 1, right? But with camera, it works the other way around. 1 is bigger than 5. Don't ask me why, I was never good in maths. I just know that. So this is a big f-stop, this is a small f-stop, but it explains itself. The eye here is open. That means the amount of light, that exposure we just spoke about, for that light, for that picture to be properly exposed, the camera has to open like this. It's open. And something else is going to happen. I'll show you what happens when the aperture is like this. So this is what we call an f-stop. It's a 1.4, right? It's 1.4, which is now a bigger aperture or a bigger f-stop. When it's f16, it's small. So that means the amount of light that comes in here is small, right? So here the picture is clear, it's correctly exposed, and it goes on. But now it differs with light, and this is what happens. So here it's f16, right? And here it's f2. What's the difference? Please pick up your hands. What are you seeing in this picture? You remember the other picture that I showed you of mine where there's a flag? You can only see you can see the people around, but you can see a flag. What's happening? So here, because the f-stop is it's bigger than this one, what it does is that everything that is around, it is not clear. So we're talking about something called depth of field. In fact, I should have said, you must have notes. Do you have pens and papers? Okay, I'll leave these notes for you guys, right? Also, it's important, go on YouTube and just understand these terminologies. So this is what happens. Because I'm going to take a picture of these sweets right in front of you using this camera. So your lens here is 4.3. So your lens is 4.3. So this is what's going to happen because it's a basic camera. So your lens is going to run between here, right? So here, because with this camera, because I mean, the idea of what you're going to do here, you're not going to do professional, you're not taking pictures for a magazine or a client. You're just going to learn how to take basic, beautiful pictures. So the issue of aperture, of whether is it, is your picture like this, where you're able to separate the main, what we call subject. So the subject here is the cap, right? So because you're using this camera, most of your pictures are going to be like this. But composition is going to be important. We'll also talk about composition. So you have the picture here, but everything around there, it's not clear. So it's what we call depth of field, right? And you get depth of field via what? The aperture or the f-stop. Are we together? Okay. Also, this picture is also correct. It's the same picture, exactly the same. It's just this one has been shot with a higher what? F-stop or? Yeah. And this one has been shot? Exactly. But the picture is the same, right? So don't worry about this. You will learn as the more you take pictures, the more you will learn about this. There's something we call shutter. Shutter is so this is a shutter release. This button, this one, this one, where you press and take the picture. We call that a shutter release. So shutter, you take the picture. So I'm not going to talk about the shutter speed because it's not important for these cameras. So also there's other elements. Remember we talk about what? Exposure. We spoke about the aperture f-stop. The shutter basically works with the shutter speed. It's how fast you take the picture. So if a person is running, you need to use a higher aperture. In this case, you'll have to use, let's say, 100 per second, but it's not important. ISO is important. What is ISO? ISO is basically, it controls the brightness. So ISO works hand in hand with what we call the exposure, right? If you're taking a picture, I'm going to switch off the light now, right? And I want you guys to take pictures of each other or whatever is in front of you. Make sure your flash is off. I don't want the flash on. Flash off. Make sure your flash is off. Flash, you need to press on the flash there. It's going to give you an option to off. Flash off. Flash off. Are we done? Yeah. Okay. I want you guys to look at those pictures, right? Compare the first picture you took with the light on, and then with the correct exposure, and the light that the picture that you took now. It's underexposed, right? It's underexposed. Why? It's because the ISO is low. So how ISO works, other cameras, they have what to call, ISO will be, let's say 100 per second. So ISO works with seconds. It will be 100 per second to, let me see the ISO of this camera. Because it's an automatic camera, this camera, in fact, it's an automatic car. So we have manual and automatic, and that's how photography works. There's automatic, there's manual. So you decide, in this case, this camera decides for you. The only thing that you decide is the composition. We'll talk about the composition, right? So when you're not shooting manual, you are using auto. So basically everything the camera does, it creates the aperture for you. It creates the f-stop for you. I mean, which is now the aperture and f-stop the same thing. It creates the, it ensures what exposure are you, what is it on the correct exposure or is it not correct exposure? And that's why now the flash, if the flash is on, if it sees that it's dark, then it will decide, but no. But now it's time for me to what? To put on the flash. But in this case, because you switch off the flash, then the picture becomes underexposed, which means that the amount of light that comes into your camera is low. And when the amount of camera that comes into this lens is low, the picture becomes dark. And that is where the ISO comes in. It controls what? The brightness, right? And then we're talking about white balance. So what happens with white balance is that also this camera, what it does, it controls, it decides what white balance are we using. So I'll show you what white balance is this on this camera. So let's say, for example, this is a, so there's different kinds of white balances. So there's what we call this lighting. This is tungsten lighting. So because there's, in this room, currently there's one source of light. One source of light. What do you think? What is the source of light in this room? Hands up. What source of light is in this room? What source of light do we have in this space?
I think it's the lamp.
It's the lamp, right? This is tungsten lighting. If we open this, the blinds, then we end up with two sources of light. We have the light of this and natural light or ambient light. This is what? Natural light or ambient, right? So white balance has to do with that. It has to do with the source of light. So if the picture, if you're taking a picture outside the sun, the picture is going to be orange because the sun is orange. If you take a picture in this room with this light, the picture is going to be a bit bluish, right? If you take a picture with the normal globe that we use at home, the picture is going to be what? A bit reddish. So it differs. When it's cloudy, the picture also it becomes different. You'll see that the more you're taking pictures, you'll be aware of what I'm talking about, okay? That in different, even at night, it changes. If you're taking a picture at night, it changes. It becomes darker because it's at night. If you take a picture under a shade, it also becomes different. So those are the different kinds of what? White balance. So how we control white balance normally in film, when people are shooting movies, white balance, they will control it with a white paper. So that it is so that the exposure is correct. So for them to get that, then but with these cameras you don't have to do that. But these are the things that just the elements that you just have to be aware of. That we have what we call ISO, we have white balance, and then we have what we call composition. What is composition? Right? angles. It's one of the elements of photography where you can be able to move around and decide, okay, fine, if I'm here, it's actually better. I can get now a better picture of what he's doing because I'm trying to avoid any obstructions. In that case, I have control over the situation. Then I can be able to compose. Composition is everything. What will make your pictures speak volumes and be powerful is how you compose them, right? Composition is important, right? So this is what we call rule of thirds, right? Rule of thirds, it's where you decide to put a picture, whether you put it here, if you put the picture in the middle, will it make sense? If you put it here, so you decide. You see, in this case, you're taking, let's say, a picture of this, what is this, a lighthouse. You are deciding the distance. So we're talking about, this is, when you're taking a picture from, this is what we call the foreground, right? And then there it's the, what we call, given a room house, right? If you're taking a portrait of a person, you will do it like this, right? Because if you do it like that, there's just too much house or room on top, right? But if you take it down, then it's better, right? And then if you're taking a picture, for example, of this entire room, we have to be take cognizance of the foreground, which is now the space on the floor, and also the room on top, which is the room house, the space on top, right? So here, this person decided that, okay, I can have control. Can you imagine? There's no obstruction here. You have the entire lighthouse to yourself, then you decide, do I put it here? Or do I put it here? Or do I put it here? So you get, because in this case, because you're going to be you'll be working with as much as I hate using the term, the subjects that you have control over, it gives you more opportunity to control the, to compose the picture correctly, right? What are you seeing on this picture? This guy, his name is Leon. Okay, let me tell you a story. So I was doing a master's, which I have not completed. And my research was on looking at the visualization of poor whites, or what we call whiteness. And this guy, Leon, stands on the corner of 2nd Avenue and Nelson Mandela Road. He is a butcher by profession. He used to work in Cape Town. He is from the Western Cape. And he came to Bloemfontein. And he got a job years back, but he lost his job. And now he ended up staying in the streets. Right? This man is homeless. Right? As homeless as he is, because I am obliged by ethics, photographic ethics, that I need to take his picture with so much respect, decency, and dignity. I need to show dignity. As homeless as he is, I need to respect him. I need to show him as a very dignified person. And can you see a relationship between this guy and the photographer? The way he is gazing. So when you're looking at a picture, when you are looking at me in photography, that we call that gazing, like the connection, the eyes, the connection between me and you, the connection, that is gazing. So you can see that there is a relationship between the photographer and the subject, because we have formed a trust, whether it was in 2 minutes or in 5 seconds, whatever. Because I went to Leon and I explained to him what I'm doing. Right? So it's important that your subjects or the people that you're photographing or whatever, whether it's a building, you have to give it respect and dignity. All the time. It doesn't matter how poor the person is or how wealthy they are, you have to respect them. It is everything. If you're going to become a social documenter or a social photographer or social activist, whatever you want to call yourself, you have to respect the people that you'll be photographing, because they're giving you an opportunity. It's an honor, in fact. also a composition. There's these interesting elements, you know. There's this flow that is happening on this picture, right? And this is not a picture taken in Paris. It's a picture taken in Johannesburg, in small phase 2 in Bramfisher. Right? This is us. Are you seeing me telling a story with these two pictures? This picture? Are you seeing a story? This picture and that picture? Does it say something to you? Can you buy this picture if I was to sell it? Why?
I wouldn't want to have a son in
I'm not buying it. Just it's interesting.
But besides that, you find the picture interesting?
I think if I was interested in Africanism, I would buy the picture. But like she said, if you're not, then the picture is beautiful, but
For her, it doesn't work, right?
yes.
To have it on a wall. But I'm sure somebody in Europe would buy it, definitely.
I will put it.
You see, there's elements. You see this picture, this person is also bringing a particular social issue. What does this thing say? Can somebody read that for us? So how I frame this picture is very important. Where do you think I was when I took this picture? What angle? From what position? It says position. What position? Was I standing? Was I on my back? Was I on my knees? What position do you think I took this picture?
You're probably
Lying down?
on your stomach.
Stomach?
On your knees.
Knees. I was on my knees. Next. Remember I spoke about the foreground? This is the foreground. You can see this is a car road, right? And then there's this end, there's this tire, there's this. So also it tells you you're not there. I didn't even have to say it was a protest, you can see, right? So this is a very interesting picture. You see how I framed it? You see? So also, I will show you the slide now. So where I'm using lines here, right? Remember the other one I was using patterns? So here I'm trying to direct you as a viewer of this image. I'm leading you direct to Malema. You don't even have to, you're walking into him, right? Aren't you? Your eye is moving into him. So you have control. So it was packed here. So we're talking about the, okay, photo voice you already know, right? You explained it, Bonnie, so because they did tell you what it is, so it's exactly what we're talking about. Okay, social issues, what, you know. So these are also important. These are the 7 most important elements of design in photography. So remember we talked about lines. We talk about shape, whatever is around, you can use shape. Forms, texture is important, patterns, color, and space. Space, remember space here and here, space around you. Texture, you can, example, the building. Remember the black and white building? There's the bricks and the windows. So those are patterns, right?